And I know, well, I'm privileged to know that because I've also asked this question as someone who was once an aviation reporter. I've asked this question, and I know that the NCA has been encouraging the government to allow airlines,
So it's a case of the government is not given the go-ahead, they're not licensing them to do it?
That's been political. It's a case of it's not yet evident.
It costs a lot of money.
You cannot say.
I beg your pardon. Ikechi, I'm embarrassed by what Captain said about aircraft being taken abroad and the servicing not being done as it should be. I mean, aircraft are not cheap. Your airplane goes down. It might kill your company depending on the size of your, even big airlines, their planes come down and they feel it. It shakes them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think about airlines cutting corners when they go to service their aircraft? I think it's embarrassing.
I want to look at this globally. He had said something. There was an airline called Okada that ended up having a huge fleet that was probably the highest number in Africa. It wasn't because he wanted to grow the scale of the airline. It was just that each time the airline needed to do a check, it was cheaper to buy a newer aircraft than do a heavy-duty check on the aircraft. So you parked it at Benin Airport and got a new BSU 111. So that was a so-called belief then. So, but I think the error came sometime in the past where we missed why we are doing aviation. Today in Nigeria, we are doing aviation for the sake of aviation. You don't do mathematics. We have the best professors of mathematics, but it took an undergraduate teenager in Harvard to write an algorithm to do Facebook. What are our professors of mathematics doing? We are doing all these things for the sake of it. Aviation is supposed to be an agent of development, an agent of diplomacy, an agent of economic growth. The smallest countries in the world are investing in aviation to extend their power. UAE has 5 airlines. What's the population? Investing $1 billion can do that.
Airlines.
Okay, we don't want to go that way, but I think the error was done when we forgot why we are doing aviation. And over the years, since 2003, where the massive reform started, the reform has taken us backwards, not front. As of 2003, there were $3 denominated businesses in Nigeria: maritime, oil, and aviation. These two were controlled by foreigners, maritime and oil. And we are passing the cabotage bill in order to control maritime, oil content bill in local content in order to control oil. Aviation was under the control of Nigerians. For a large extent, before 1998, we controlled most of the people who flew out of Nigeria. But as of today, after those called reforms, we lost control of the aviation environment. Today, all foreign airlines control 98% of whatever aviation business that goes on. To the extent that the area which we had control, West Coast,
it's gone.
Today, Kenya Airways has fifth freedom rights out of Accra. They are flying domestic from Accra to Freetown to Monrovia. Ethiopian Airlines are also fifth freedom rights with ASCAI. So today we have lost control. Outside that reform we did in 2003, we have gone downhill. We have forgotten that aviation is an agent of development. I heard your vision and mission statement. I think that's where it's wrong. So we have run in circles and said we are doing aviation for the sake of aviation. No, aviation is just an agent of development. Ethiopia is a very poor country, but I went to the airport, not just the airport, and I went to see the whole system. They run top quality and is owned by government. The 4 dominant airlines in Africa are owned by government. ET, KQ is partially owned, South African Airways and Egypt Air. So I think what has happened is that we liquidated Nigerian Airways, so we had no cover.
That was the beginning.
As of today, the biggest nation, the largest source market of travelers in Africa, has no airline of its own. Nigeria. And with the way we are going, very soon we'll give up all the rights and all these airlines will fly local. So I think there's a problem in the original vision and the mission. So if we begin to change direction where we are going, I heard Aero, the MD told me they could service quite a lot of their aircraft within
certain check.
I'm not in that area, so I can't say if it is true
they can,
or false.
Up to a certain
level.
Level.
Yes.
So what I think we should do as a nation is to see aviation not for the sake of aviation, but as one of the things we will use to drive our economy. So if we begin to look at it and put money, e.g. maintenance, if you say, okay, Aero has this, can the government buy into what Aero is doing so they have some funds to expand, and we have a minimum percentage of
So
that
other airlines can also
use that.
facilities.
So, but in Nigeria, government people are envious of aviation practitioners. I can tell you that from practical experience.
Let me explain.
So you try to limit. I met a foreign airline manager in Nigeria 2 weeks ago, and he told me Nigerians don't protect their own in aviation. And I have looked deeply at it, and I have seen that to be true. It runs from the federal government down to the. So if Ethiopian airline crashes, Nigerians will fly ET that night anywhere in the world.
Yes.
Kenya Airways crash. I've been involved in most of this one. But the day a Nigerian airline crashes, everybody flies, not from that particular airline. They abandon every other airline.
Yes.
Despite the fact that we have the best equipment and the best machine equipment between Lagos and London is run by a Nigerian airline. But people would prefer to fly a 767, which I find uncomfortable for my legs, to a particular destination and connect to another destination at a higher cost. Meanwhile, a Nigerian airline flies an A340-400 or 400 and goes to UK directly, and Nigerians will avoid it.
Exactly. You see, look, what he has brought up, I was talking to you on technical things and all that, but he's brought up something. Nigeria is the best raped country in the world. We are raped on a daily basis, and this is because our government does not know what to do with the aviation sector. Look, I spent 3.5 years in Addis Ababa. A company I was flying cargo planes for was working for Ethiopian Airlines, and I got to know the inside of Ethiopian Airlines. Ethiopian Airlines, they are like, the analogy I can use here.
Like a machine.
Look, they are a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
I compare Ethiopian Airlines to what in my high school days we used to talk about Indians. If you allow an Indian into your house, it brings 10 more, and they're all called patel.
Yes.
So you can't tell which one.
the patel.
I don't mean this as a racial slur to the Indians, please. I don't mean that. But Ethiopian, there was a time Ethiopian Airlines, they did 2 flights a week out of Nigeria. Ethiopian Airlines, as we speak, they do more than 9 flights a week out of Nigeria.
And they have approval.
They also have this iSky that he mentioned is actually Ethiopian Airlines setting up a domestic airline in Lome. What do? They go along West African countries and mop up passengers and all that. These are countries. Look, an Ethiopian Airlines plane
used to do.
Exactly.
Bellevue,
An Ethiopian Airlines plane cannot go down in a crash, and you have an announcement from anybody in Ethiopia saying AOC is suspended. Look, you will kill the economy of that country.
But do we have any statistics of any aviation mishap in Ethiopia?
There are lots.
That's what
I just mentioned one out of Beirut.
In Ethiopia.
I just mentioned one out of Beirut.
No, they are mainly an international player.
Mostly.
They have been on the local flights.
They use very. Look, they don't have too many. They don't have many cities like we do. You have Addis Ababa, you have Dire Dawa, you have another one in the south as you go towards Kenya. You see, and they use F-27s, latter airplanes, but mainly Ethiopian Airlines thrive on their international network.
Actually, they call West Africa where the cake is made. The cake.
Exactly. Yeah, that is the reason why Ethiopian Airlines can set up an airline. They are based in Lome, and I've seen asky in Lagos. I've flown in Abuja.
If you want to go around West Africa, anywhere,
go with
Ouagadougou, Bamako, anywhere in West Africa, asky takes you there. He just took over what Air Afrique was
doing. Air Afrique used to do.
So, and they are doing this in Abba. And I'm impressed because these are Africans who do 2 things very well: military and aviation. At least you know if you need a soldier in Africa, get an Ethiopian. We use them, AU use them all over. If you need an aviator, the only place I went to, the whole aviation system, I only saw one Caucasian. And he was being trained on how to fly in a simulator.
Yes.
Every other thing is run by Ethiopians. And I came to Calabar Airport. I saw a Chinese painting the airport. We need a Chinese to come and paint. But these guys teach people on how to fly aircraft. This is a country that has no money, has a huge population, has poverty problems, but they have mastered an environment and they have thrived on it, because I heard during the time of Mengistu Haile Mariam, which was communist and military, a soldier went there to make problems. They brought him out and shot him in the front of the headquarters, and says nobody goes there to interfere. Those guys have run a very successful. If we can't set our own, can we buy shares in ET? Can we buy part of it and ask them? Yeah, we have not proved ourselves capable.
Look,
not only us, no West African airline has survived. Ghana Air, Cameroon, Air Afrique,
because
everything,
they follow the
Nigeria,
same model as us.
Let's bring in Rosemary. What do you think we should be saying to our government? Because we will need to wrap up very shortly. What should we be saying to our government today?
Like everybody has agreed, the genesis of the demise of Nigeria Airways, or a national carrier, it's a root cause for all this, because Ethiopian Airlines is owned by government, and that's the national carrier. We don't want to go back to why Nigeria Airways died,
But they should bring
and the
something
role of the government, because things have since evolved and changed thereafter. But I think we need a national carrier, and I think that, like Ikechi has been saying, aviation should be one of the tools to drive the Nigerian economy. It shouldn't just be a mouthpiece. It's a very viable economy. Ethiopia has been surviving on aviation solely. And it's also owned by the government. So I think the issue of having a proper national carrier should be revisited, and that would be a way forward.
Okay, do we have any
I'm just looking at what our viewers are saying. I will come to that very quickly in just a moment. But let's ask Captain. We've heard what Rosemary has just said with regards to what our government should be doing. Is it that we have no capacity in this country?